Hey everybody, welcome to the BECU podcast. I'm your host Jay Chachi, and today I'm joined by Ginette Hartell, an alumni of BME at Ryerson University. How are you, Ginette?
I'm doing very good. How are you?
I'm great. It's a pleasure to
Good.
have you here. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Me too.
Okay, so one thing I think I just mentioned it being you being an alumni, but congratulations on graduating. You actually graduated very
Thank
recently. Ooh, the
you.
engineering ring, let's go. So you through my extensive research, I have learned
hmm
that you are working for the NRC, which is the
hmm
National Research Council of Canada. So
hmm
how's that been? It sounds like a very busy job, but how's that been?
It's been really good actually. So I'm working for the Advanced Electronics and Photonics Center. It's really interesting to be doing like research specifically right now because I'm doing kind of the full end-to-end prototyping, mechanical, software, and everything in between. So yeah, it's been a really awesome experience. Only a 4 month contract, so it's wrapping up soon, but I'm really enjoying it.
That's good to hear. I'm glad you're enjoying it. It's a really cool position. So one thing I'm just gonna quickly tell you about me is I'm a third year going in. I mean going into third year, so I'm gonna be
Okay.
start applying for co-ops and stuff like that. And then when I was doing my research on you, I noticed that you have a lot of co-op experience and a lot of like work experience and club experience. So there might be times when I'm like sounding like a very young fanboy, like asking you a million questions. And I'm sure any other first, second, or third, or even fourth years listening to this are going to be like really looking for your advice when I ask you these questions. So just
Mhm.
like a early thank you for any sort of insight you give. So yeah, there's that. But moving on, one thing is you just graduated, and a lot of people say that the co-op search is pretty similar to the job search. But can you actually is that actually true, or do you feel like it's different?
Um, well, like just like as a kind of preamble to any advice I give about finding a co-op or finding a job, my personal experience is not going to be the same as yours 100%. Even the experience of my friends have been very different. But for the most part, everyone I would say has been successful. Success obviously is a spectrum, but I have so many friends that are thriving. We're thriving in co-op. We're thriving now. So if stress, which is to me the worst part about this whole job search experience, is your number one issue right now, do not worry, you will come out on top. But yeah, talking about the similarity between co-op searching and job searching, at least for me, it was kind of the same because you're trying to balance school at the same time as doing all your applications. I know a lot of people that kind of really only started their job search after they graduated and gave themselves kind of that time to commit to it full time as opposed to piling on the stress with exams. Not something I was able to do, but it seemed like a really good way to do it, and there was no difference on how many jobs they were seeing in January versus how many they were seeing in April or May, sorry. So yeah, I guess that would be the only difference is if you have the time to take that little bit of a break and commit to yourself fully and as opposed to juggling, I think job search in that way is a little bit easier.
That's cool. That's good advice. Like I know I was pretty like concerned about all that, especially because I'm going into it. So I'm like, how am I going to balance this all?
Yeah. So I was very fortunate to get my co-op in, I believe, October of my
Ooh,
third year. It was
that's
super
quick. Yeah.
freaking early. And I didn't have to stress about it for the rest of the year, which was awesome. But unfortunately, I have to say that's probably not going to be the situation for
Mm.
everyone. But if you're able to, it's definitely a good shtick.
Did that help with like courses, like third year? Were you like pressured like around your actual courses because you got it earlier? Did it like lessen the load you had, or?
Yeah. And like, did I let my grade slip because I knew that I didn't
Oh.
have to be competing with anyone else? Yeah, probably a little bit. It definitely helped to kind of have that stress off my shoulders.
No, I know what you mean.
But
It's like similar to like in high school when you get into university and you're like, oh, I got in. Early acceptance is
yeah,
whatever. Let me just start
yeah.
sliding. So hopefully the first years listening to this know maybe when they get to this point they can revisit your advice and then keep
Yes.
that in mind.
My senioritis definitely started in third year.
Oh,
I can confirm.
speaking of senioritis, do you
Mhm.
miss school? I know a lot. There's like that misconception that like in movies they're like, "Yo, I miss college so much. Yo, I miss high school so much. Like I wish I could go back. Those are my fondest memories." Like I know you just graduated, but like, do you feel that like hold on you or?
I don't think well, I maybe miss like some aspects of learning. I think the best part about being in school is, when you get those questions of like, oh, like what are you doing right now? You should be like, oh, I'm in school. like, oh, I'm studying biomedical engineering, and people are like, wow, that sounds so cool. Versus now that I'm graduated and I got this one 4 month contract, I'm about to start another 4 month contract. People are like, well, what's after that? Like, what's the plan here? And like, you just say, well, and
Don't
that's
know.
not really a good enough answer,
Yeah.
for some people, or you feel like you're not giving a good enough answer. And I think that's the part of school that I miss the most, of just being that blanket excuse of covering what you're doing right
Like the
now.
idea of like structure, right? Like that there's
Yeah,
something exists outside of what you're actually doing.
yeah, exactly, for sure.
So speaking of like school, one thing is a lot of people who are going to be watching this, the most people watching this are going to be BME students, and when they
Mhm.
see you, they're going to see that is okay. Not to like gas you up or make you feel like overly. I know you're a very humble person, but like they're going to be like successful graduate, successful BME student, somebody who came out of a very like we're pretty relatively young as a program, biomedical engineering. So when they see you, they're gonna be like, "Why did you choose BME? Like, what made you choose to be in such like a not volatile but very young, like new like
Yeah.
program? So what made you choose it?"
Um, I was 17, a very young 17, when I was choosing where I wanted to apply, I guess in the 12th grade. I was working in a doctor's office at the time, and most of the stuff that they were doing was point blank disgusting to me. Like, I was doing like urine tests, I was cleaning up
Oh,
after physical exams. I was packaging stool samples to be sent to other labs. Like, I was like, this is not what I want to do, but I was good at the science. I was good at the chemistry. I loved physics. I loved calculus. And I was doing manic searching on the internet, and I was like, biomedical engineering, like, you're done school after 4 years. You don't have to do a master's. Like, this is exactly what I need to be doing because I hate school. Don't want to be a doctor, apparently, but I still want to be in a fulfilling job that makes me feel like I'm giving back. So, yeah, that's kind of how I ended up at this point. And it just, my love grew for it over the years. But it was kind of random, but not in a bad way. And I definitely wouldn't be doing anything else even if I was choosing now. But yeah, that's kind of how it happened.
did you have like any outside influence? Like I know for me, like I'm surrounded by a bunch of like civil engineers and electrical engineers, so I was always like pushed towards like, hey, maybe you should do engineering. But did you have that kind of influence from like parents or friends or extended family?
Really? My parents started, well, my dad didn't go to university. Well, he did 2 years and then he dropped out and then he joined the military. So he had a very kind of non-traditional career path where he went back to school when he was maybe like in his late 30s to finish an arts degree. My mom did PR. Um, but there was always kind of this expectation that I was going to be like the mad scientist because it was just something I was always drawn to. Um, and I guess, like, in terms of my parents' friends, like, I remember this one guy when I told him I was going into environmental engineering. He was doing mining engineering of some kind, and he just, said all the mean stuff that you hear when you
Yeah.
tell people you're going into biomed, like, oh, like, you're not going to make any money doing that. Like, there's no market, like, not in Canada. I'm like, okay,
Nah, I know what you
but
mean.
you're killing the planet.
Yeah, literally, the petroleum engineers. I know who you're talking about. Those
Yeah.
dang
Like, I
petroleum
am,
engineers.
like, there's absolutely nothing wrong with going into that field, but I do have an issue with, like, kind of like anybody
Hmm.
tells you what they really want to do and you shut them down. That's kind
Yeah,
of sad.
did you have that? I know right now when I joined, it was when I came to Ryerson, it was like ECB, like electrical computer
Mhm.
biomed. Did you have like that thing where like your friends or peers or people meant they're like, why are you in BME? Why didn't you switch to like comp? Why didn't you switch to ELE? Why didn't you switch to civil?
Yeah, definitely. And it was absolutely silly. It's the
Hmm.
same like thing that people get when they're studying arts and people say arts is a useless degree, or they're studying straight science and people are like, "Oh, well, you have to do a master's." Everybody's going to think that they know what you're doing better than you do. And at the end of the day, I've had nothing but positive experiences in my co-ops and school and my job post graduation. Like, there's literally nothing to worry about, and it makes me feel sad that other people judge you based on kind of what you decide to do because that's what you want to do, right? Nothing wrong with switching out to something else, but don't let other people's fears influence kind of your passion, like what you want to do.
Yeah, and honestly, BME has a lot of good balance, right? We have like the electrical courses, we have the comp courses, we have the bio, we have everything. So I don't see why
Yeah.
people tend to like not really put us down, but really just come after us as if we're like some black sheep in the engineering field.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Like right now, I'm working for a my manager did his undergrad in electrical. Actually, he did two undergrads. He did his first undergrad in biomedical physics, did his second undergrad in electrical, and then he got a master's in mechanical. And don't get me wrong, this guy is light years smarter than I am, and I'm in no way comparing myself to the absolute intelligence of this guy. But no matter where he's talking, like if he's talking about mechanical stuff, I can catch up, I can follow along with the conversation. He's talking about electrical stuff. Yep, I'm there. Biomedical physics. Like it's
It's there,
close.
it's there, it's there.
It's there. That one course in second year, but yeah, it's really interesting. So I mean, I think I'm a really good fit to be working with him, and to see me being able to catch up with those people, it definitely solidifying like again like what I chose to study and how interesting it was to me.
So you all you first years watching, you'll follow your dreams. Follow your dreams. Keep that in mind. We have a lot of people in BME who love what they do, and they're always there to give you advice and support. So just stick with it. Don't let people peer pressure you. Ginette here is proof of what happens if you actually follow your passions, whether that is you being moved to somewhere else like a different program, or if you decide to stick with BME. Just follow what your heart tells you to do, especially in such a fun field like engineering.
Yeah, definitely, 100%.
So, just moving on from this topic, one of the really cool things is that this is my first time actually meeting you. So I have the pleasure of meeting Ginette today, but my boss, my supreme overlord, Yusuf, he's the VP of BQ. He actually knew Ginette before, and when I was talking to him about her, he really had a lot of really good stuff to say about you. And I know he was like, Jeanette's gonna be like, no, I'm not like that. I'm just doing what I want to do to make sure everybody is successful. But I do want to highlight something. So Ginette here was actually a part of BQ. She was in BMES, she was in Tetra, and then on top of all that, while I'm here being a student life associate, like I'm the only thing I do is student life stuff, she was taking on roles in logistics, in marketing, she was taking on stuff in events, she was actually a club president. I feel so bad. I'm like overwhelming her with all this stuff, but one thing is she was definitely involved in the community. And so what I wanted to ask you was maybe you can talk a little bit about like those three, the BQ, BMES, and Tetra, and then which you preferred most. I know you're gonna say BQ was the best, obviously, but maybe you can just talk a little bit about it, and then why you think it's important for us BME students to like come together in these groups and participate.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, obviously, for those nice things you just said. I think, first of all, just being involved in student politics in general, I think really helped me make so many more friends than I think I had previous to kind of when I started jumping in. And especially like friends in my program and friends that had similar interests and different skill sets, and different leadership qualities, which I felt like I could pick and choose from as I was kind of discovering who I wanted to be as a leader. One thing that in the workplace I really struggle with is relating to my leadership, because I mean, for the most part, it's older men that I've been working for, and that's just kind of the reality of probably most of the rest of my career. So to have so many people so similar to me and thriving in this BQ environment and BMES and Tetra and all that stuff, it was really, I think, critical for me trying to figure out how I wanted to be in kind of that more structured setting. So obviously as a friend, I don't need to work on that. I'm here to support you. I got this. But it's such a different dynamic supporting people as a leader. And I think that was probably the most important thing that I got out of all of those experiences. In terms of picking my favorites,
I'm gonna just guess and say you're gonna say BMES, but
it is BMES.
Okay, yeah.
Only because I kind of saw that one through to being the club president, and that was a really great experience for me. Tetra does amazing things. BQ is my baby. We pulled her out of the ashes actually in my first year. It used to be, so it was called Cube, and it was, I guess, 3 years prior to my first year. And then Cube died, like out of nowhere. Nobody resuscitated it. And that was for about 2 years. BQ didn't have a course union. Or BIB didn't have a course union, sorry. And then when it was rebranded as BQ,
we're back.
I was the first year rep. So it was also cool to kind of be with the club in its, formative years. But yeah, BMES is my baby too. So
Of
it's
course,
so
of
hard to
course.
choose when you have so many nice kids.
I know what you mean, but I'm always gonna stick with BQ because BQ welcomed me with open arms. Obviously, I'm sitting here. Uh, how do I say? I'm not interviewing you, but I am having lovely conversations with great people because of BQ. So I know what you
Surprise!
mean.
I'm
Yeah.
actually being interviewed for the graduate
Oh,
position of
yeah.
major right
Let's just say it's not an interview. It's more of an informative conversation. That's
now.
what we'll
Right,
call it.
right,
But
right,
yeah, but
right.
I know what you
Sure.
mean. It's so hard to choose when you're in so many different things. But I'm glad that you had a really fun experience meeting new people and then also building your skills. So hopefully all of you listening, please join a club or at least try to get involved with clubs. They're doing their absolute best. Like BQ, we Jeanette started us off. We're trying to make you listen to these podcasts. Hopefully there's some cool events to show up. Same thing with BMES, same thing with Tetra, same thing with IEEE. We're all doing cool stuff for the community. Make sure you get involved. So moving on. One thing I noticed is that's actually a lot of clubs. You were in a lot. Like I'm in one, and I'm already like crying myself to sleep every day because Yusuf, you give me too much work,
Because
man.
these conversations are so horrible for
No, no,
you to
no,
sit
no.
through.
I love the conversations. I love Yusuf. I love the conversations. No, I love the conversations. I love the guests. They're amazing. You're amazing. But the problem is when you're in a club, there's always that thing where you're like, am I doing it enough? Should I do more for the club? Or am I taking myself away from my courses? So what I wanted to ask you was, as somebody who juggled basically three clubs and was a president of one of these clubs, do you feel like clubs affected your like university experience like negatively? Or like took away from your courses? Because that's what a lot of first years fear, right? They're like, oh no, I'm not gonna
Mhm.
have time for anything.
Um, so in first year I was the first year rep, just for BQ. In second year I was just the second year rep, and then I also did try mentoring. And then in third year I was VP marketing for Tetra, VP logistics for BQ, and VP events for BMES. And that was too much. I was also working part-time. And I also hold myself to a very high standard when it comes to my grades, which is my own problem. But that being said, I definitely was putting myself through the ringer. I did not need to be putting myself voluntarily under so much stress. Um, and third year is the hardest year. I was taking the full course load. It is absolutely tremendously difficult. And I mean, everybody has their strengths. For me, I'm much more mechanically inclined. So the electrical stuff, which really hits harder in third year, was a little bit more difficult for me. So don't do what I did. Know your limit. Ease yourself in. You don't have to do it all in first year. You don't have to do it all in second year. Um, Kind of keep your finger on the pulse and because when you're being interviewed for these clubs, because normally you don't just join them. I mean, BMES is elected, but really understand what the hour per week commitment is. If you've had friends that have been on those clubs, do their meetings run late? Like, how many events are they running per month? Like, you can kind of gauge how much time you're actually going to have to commit to each of them. The issue with those three clubs is that they all did a lot of events. The marketing positions, especially, I found very time consuming as compared to events positions. You're kind of doing like all your work leading up to the event, but it's very sporadic, and then you don't do anything for a few weeks. And then logistics was just all the time doing little tasks. So three very different types of busy. Talk to somebody that's been in that position is probably my best advice. And decide what your priorities are going to be. I said this before, I think, but you don't have to have the best GPA. You don't have to be in the most extracurriculars. You don't have to have the coolest work experience. You need to have one thing that sets you apart from other people, but you pick and choose what that's going to be. But trying to do it all is literally going to kill you, and no one employer is going to want one person to be all three things. Probably one employer is going to have a preference towards a high GPA, or one employer is going to have a preference towards high extracurriculars. But you're never going to have an employer who realistically thinks that somebody could have a 4.0, be the class president, and have worked for NASA. You know what I mean? Like, nobody's asking for all three of those. Just pick one thing, commit to it, and don't overextend yourself, especially right now. there's so many things going on in the world that you need to be stressed out about, and this isn't one of them. Yeah, I guess that's all I have to say. Don't do what I did. Just dial it back a little.
Yeah, I get it. But no, you're having you've how do I say it? You've been successful, but obviously you know the effects of doing all that now, right?
Yeah, but it sucked. You
Yeah,
know what I
okay.
mean? Like
You
it
look you look
sucked.
like you you definitely regret it a bit, but no, but you met new people. I think you've mentioned that it was good on one
Oh no, I
side,
loved it.
obviously,
It
but
sucked.
then there's times when
Yeah,
it sucked, yeah.
yeah.
So
I loved it, but it sucked.
yeah, yeah, I was trying to listen to it, but then I got scared when you were like third year's the hardest, and I'm like, oh, that's gonna be me in like a couple of weeks. But
Yeah. But yeah, it's
so
fine.
it's okay, it's fine. I love school. I totally love school.
It's also the most interesting, I thought. Well, fourth year is the most interesting, but in terms of like how cool the stuff was, third year was definitely a good one. So at least you're not learning boring hard
Hmm.
stuff. But yeah,
Your fourth
it
year
is.
was interesting. So
Mhm.
from your fourth year, what I did is once again from my very extensive research. So I have the pleasure of being able to say that I have a LinkedIn. Thank you, people, for
Ooh.
having LinkedIn. But I was able to not stalk, but research professionally your LinkedIn,
Mhm.
and I noticed that you actually documented your capstone project which is yeah,
Yes.
I would really want to talk about it because it's actually really interesting the way you actually covered like how it went from like your team formation to like the actual end result. So one thing is your project. I actually have it pulled up here. It was a robotic automated I can't even say it, microscopy
Microscopy.
system. Yeah. So and I was like, do I want to be that like really weird host who goes and researches everything so that the person like has no time to explain their like fourth year life's work, or do I want to be the dude who lets the person just explain it, have fun with it? So I chose that route. So maybe you could just talk about like how it was from like the very like lead in when you first made your like group to like how it was at the very end. And you could be super extensive because I know people really want to hear about these capstone projects because no one ever talks about them, but they're always like really interesting and they're very like extensively done because it's literally your final project, right? So
Yeah.
like, you can start anywhere. Like I'm down. I'm just ready to listen about like to it.
So it's funny that you bring up, I guess, how well I documented it. That is probably the best decision I've ever made, is not to make just one nice big post at the end. Do your stabs, record your milestones, just put stuff up onto your LinkedIn, because even if you're like, oh, this is only 2 months of work, like it's not that impressive. Just the consistency and the updating and getting people to follow along with your story is really the content that your LinkedIn was made for. It's not for you to go on once a year and announce to people that, oh, I got a new job. Like, yes, that's cool, that's awesome. Everyone's gonna congratulate you. But I found that the storytelling through the stages of my capstone was the highest engaged content that I've ever put on there. I had people from my Rico Loblas that reached out and asked me questions. They wanted to help and give me new ideas. So that was really cool. Same thing with any papers you write that you're proud of. Definitely throw those up on your LinkedIn, especially in fourth and third year. Because it is cool stuff. It's cool research that you're doing. You might not think it's cool because, 24 other people in your lab submitted almost identical papers. But it is interesting to people that don't think
Hmm.
it's cool. So yeah, good idea for anyone if they wanted to kind of get more content on their LinkedIn. I got both of my 2 contracts based on pretty much the stuff that I started putting out on my LinkedIn, because it was kind of cool. Anyway,
Kind of cool. It looks really cool. Like I'm still looking at it right now, and I love the way that you
yeah.
just like went over it. And it's very like, at least for me, because I'm a bit into the middle of biomed. I can kind of
Mhm.
understand it, but then like it looks really cool. Like I'm like, not, how do I say it? I'm like completely amazed. I'm at a loss for words, and that's why I would like you to explain it, just so like people listening could
Yeah.
just be like, whoa,
So
that's
the
sick too.
actual the idea for the actual project is during a surgery, the traditional back in the day, surgeons used to wear head-mounted microscopes while they perform a surgery so they could see a magnified field of view throughout their surgery. So basically, you just need to be able to see what you're doing in order to perform a surgery. That's a shocker, I know. But the idea, the head-mounted microscopes ergonomically are not good, especially for 7, 8, 9 hour surgeries. It's tough to be looking down the whole time. So they started coming up with these wall-mounted microscopes that would display on an LED screen in the surgery OR room. And you kind of just repositioned and refocused the microscope as you went. And now where the field is going, and there's actually a lot of companies doing this in Canada. If you look up this Adaptive Medical, IntelliJoint, it's actually pretty popular in terms of Canadian innovation. They are doing these robotic automated microscopy systems, which essentially refocus and move with the surgeon throughout surgery. So there's no manual focusing, there's no manual adjustment. The super cool ones on the market you can like talk to, like zoom in or zoom out, stuff like that. It's really, really cool. Of course, ours was virtual. So slightly actually more interesting in some ways because we were able to design a much more complex system versus if we'd been doing this in person, we probably would have done like a 3 degree of freedom robot this big, like it would have been a much smaller scale versus because we had the flexibility of online schooling, we were able to go big. So we designed so there was one person that was in charge of the mechanical design control system, and then 2 people on the optical tracking system, both hardware and software. So we created the robotic arm that had a microscope on the mount. So we designed the whole mechanical structure for that. That was done in Fusion. And then we also designed all of the actuators for the control system and the control system itself using the Peter Cork toolbox. So that was another person's work. And then the optical tracking system is what takes in the scene of the OR room and says, oh, this is where the surgeon is working right now. And it does that with little markers that you see on their surgical instruments. So that was both a hardware component because we had to design the surgical instrument attachment and the 2 cameras. And then there was also a software component, which was the computer vision. How do you teach a computer to recognize something in a video? Which was really interesting and just kind of looked cool. So that was most of what we shared on LinkedIn. But yeah, computer vision is really cool actually, and that's what I've been working on this summer. I really like it. I think it's a really interesting field, especially in biomed, where you got medical images and stuff.
No, it was interesting. I remember like most of my like not research, but when I was looking at it, I was just sitting there just being like, am I ever gonna be able to do something like that?
Yes.
But then again, once again, like you said, if you just stay like committed to it and just trust yourself, and then if you don't focus on like all the other worrisome things like working and getting jobs and co-ops, like then you should be fine, right? And then if you just continue out. I don't know, this laugh is kind
Yeah.
of scaring me, Jeanette, but yeah, I know what you mean.
Just do your best.
Yeah, just do your
That's
best.
all I
Love
can
it.
ask.
Nah,
Yeah.
but yeah. But then one thing I actually was gonna ask, but you actually mentioned it already, was I was gonna be like, wasn't fourth year online kind of like of a struggle or make it harder? But you're saying that it did help, at least in the capstone, in terms of that, you were able to make it larger in scale because of online semester.
Yeah. Yeah. So, 4th year, a lot of our classes they were able to make fairly project based. So that definitely helped. Signal and image processing was pretty much the same. You don't really need to be in a lab for that. We were just using kind of databases of signals. Um, it was not ideal, but I can't complain too much. I was safe and healthy, and I made it through. I got my ring. We're out on the other side, and I still did really enjoy a lot of my classes.
No, it's good to hear. That's especially, I think that will be motivational to any students who are going into their fourth year. Just be like, guys, don't worry about
Mhm.
it. Girls, don't worry about it. Everybody, don't worry about it. Just have fun with it. It's your final project. It's your final year. Just do your best to put yourself out there. Do what Jeanette said. Just try to put a little bit out. Document your thing. Even if it's not going to be viewed by other people, it is good for yourself just to see the progress that you've made as a person. I'm assuming
Yeah.
that like your eyebrows raised. Yeah, I feel like you could resonate with
Well,
that.
even if you're not going to like post it anywhere, keep a portfolio for your job interviews. Keep a GitHub if you're doing any coding. That stuff has been super, super helpful in terms of like when I'm in an interview, showing them that I'm not just talking out my butt about what I've done.
So, like you mentioned, you are the. Okay, I'm not. Once again, this is not an interview. Everybody, this is not an interview. But you did say that you are like the graduate. The graduate. Well, you are a graduate, but I mean, like, I'm not interviewing as a graduate. But what I wanted to ask was just like just a rundown of your memories as like a BME student at Ryerson. So from first year, like, what was your favorite memory from your like the very beginning of your undergraduate degree?
Probably all the people I met, honestly, as cheesy as it sounds. Met some really, really good friends. My friend Alex, I met during Frosh Week. Quinley wore a volleyball shirt to class one day, and we were low on girls on my intramural team. She got dragged along. Like, it was absolutely insane how we all came together. My absolute favorite memory, I think, was in third year. And I am plagued, unfortunately, with having a late November birthday, which is peak like studying and being stressed.
Exam
And like
time. Let's go.
yeah, so me and my really good friend Claudia, who's also in BME, she has her birthday on the 24th and I'm on the 25th. And I'd been disappointed year after year with, oh, I'm sick, like yada, yada, yada. And it's fine, or I have to go home, or I totally get it. And I just brought my expectations down so low. And at third year, I remember almost our whole like core group of BME friends showing up for just this like silly little night where we drank. And I just remember feeling so loved because we had an anatomy exam like half a week. And all these people still wanted to spend this time with me. And I just remember like going to the washroom at one point and bawling my eyes out about how happy I was. And I think that was probably one of my favorite. And the night was like, in terms of like, all the crazy nights I've gone out and whatnot, was not insane at all. I think we probably all went to bed by midnight at the latest.
It's the engineer genes just kicked in. Like, you gotta make sure you're in
but
bed.
I was just so happy, and yeah, just some really, really positive memories with that core group of BMEs. And I think because we're such a small program, we get that benefit of coming so close together with our class. And yeah, I think that's some good stuff, I think.
No, I'm glad. If Ginette, if your friends are listening, you guys are amazing friends. I know my friends would ditch me the moment I said I have a birthday thing and it's like an exam.
I'm a late sag. Yeah.
No, I'm not plagued by it. I have a summer birthday, so usually everybody's like
That's
gone
nice.
off. But thankfully, COVID's kept everybody locked up with me in this
You've got
wonderful
them
city.
chained,
Yeah, basically,
yeah.
I just got I'm keeping them here. But yeah, I know what you mean. Like, especially near like that November time, it's just like you could barely get anybody to even just spend like 5 minutes away from their books or like their computers.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you had like that wonderful experience. And then
Yeah.
I was gonna say happy late birthday, but it's like assuming
Maybe
what
my
time
half
we're doing it.
birthday?
Yeah, almost birthday, early birthday. I would say
Oh,
happy early
yeah.
birthday in case we don't know when this comes out. Who knows? This is
Yeah.
totally a fall time podcast. But
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
So I've learned about one of your most fond memories.
hmm
So now it's time for the exact opposite of that. So I'm gonna ask you, what is the most like embarrassing experience that you've had as like a student? It could be like in school or like related to school, but just like it could be even like a story from when you were like kindergarten. But like, what's the most embarrassing like experience you've had as like a student?
Um, can I give a co-op
You
embarrassing
can
story?
give me any story you feel
Okay.
comfortable sharing.
So it was after second year. And I was not able to really find a biomed co-op after second year. And it was like middle of exams in April, and this random job that I had applied to with the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture called me for an interview. And I grew up outside, like the outskirts of Ottawa. So I grew up, knew tons of kids that were farmers. I had a friend that grew up on a house, like on a horse farm. I slept over at a place all the time, helped with some minor chores. I went to fairs where I saw animals, and I love them. I love animals. Okay. So I was like, this job will be mine. Like I will own this job. This will be the easiest, best job of my life. And it was really interesting for the most part. I was doing a lot of data collection for green energy projects, which I really liked. But there was one aspect of this job which I was not very good at, and that was waste management.
That doesn't sound fun already.
So, yeah, no, it's not. So like when you see like farm animals, it's like not in like their feces isn't in high concentration. Like
Hmm.
they're kept clean. You know what I mean? Like their pens are clean all the time because obviously they want to have clean
Yeah,
air.
obviously, yeah.
Um, and so that smell had always been fine with me, and I didn't really know that I had such a sensitive stomach to like this particular smell. Because even when I'm driving, because again, like I grew up in the middle of nowhere, like I drive all the time, and the fields have just been sprayed with manure. Like I don't find that smell like super irritating. Obviously, I don't think it smells good,
Obviously, yeah,
but
yeah,
I don't like I'm not like gagging, right? And the first time we went to the first time we went to a farm that had a smell complaint at it, we were like standing over. So like they literally store their manures in these like 20-ton open faced like pools.
yeah. What?
Yeah, so like on a manure, like on a farm, like if it's a liquid manure, so if it's a pig or a cow, basically, they're literally like imagine like a massive swimming pool of just manure. And if it's well maintained, right, because we're doing waste management, so we're the people that are trying to come and fix these issues that they're having, the top like crusts. I don't know if you're gonna want to keep this in here.
No, I would. I feel like every.
The top, like,
I find this
crust.
interesting. All the homies who don't understand what this is, she's talking about poop.
Yeah.
That's why she said that.
Yes.
So
Yes. I'm
anybody,
talking about manure.
she's talking about manure, which is basically animal poop.
Right. So the top will like crust and like so all the smell will like be contained inside this pool. But if they don't like keep the right like pH and stuff like that, which like you do by like adding other stuff or like not adding too much stuff, like you can add like waste, like other waste, like you can put like compost in a manure storage and it'll like help it or whatever. Anyway, this guy did not have that. It was the hottest summer. It was summer 2018. So it was literally the hottest summer we've had in recent memory. And it smelled so bad. And this place wasn't even that bad. The next farm we went to, I threw up in my mouth 3 times. Literally 3 times. And the first time I did it, because the first time I thought it was bad, but it wasn't actually that bad. The next farm we went to, it was like 3 times the size, completely liquid. There was no crust at all. And I remember the first time I threw up, you know, normally you throw up in your mouth, you immediately swallow it.
Yeah, because it's like it's not too much. It's just enough for you to like be like, oh, I'm good, I'm good.
I literally sat there with it wishing around in my teeth for like 30 seconds, like deciding if I could let it out. You know what I mean? Like I was like, yeah, I can definitely just, because my boss was like talking to the farm or whatever. I was like, I can definitely just like cobble on an excuse, go to the car, do this behind like a tree or something. And I was like, no, it's freaking crazy. You have to swallow this. So I swallowed it.
You
And
swallow.
then,
Oh my god.
and so like I'm fully supposed to be paying attention to this conversation also. And the entire time, all I can remember thinking is like, what's an excuse to go to the car? What's an excuse to leave early? Is the smell getting on my clothes? Is the smell getting in my hair? And throwing up 2 more times because the wind would fucking blow towards me and I'd get another full-on mouthful of it. Also, there's flies. Oh my god, it's so gross. However,
Wait, why is there however?
I learned a lot from that co-op and I loved my manager. And if any of them ever listened to this, I was so happy to be there. And it was completely my body just not letting me be happy. You know, like if it had been up to me, I would have been so happy to be there. It was completely the body thing, you know?
I don't even what.
I loved that job. I loved that job so much. I just want to reiterate.
No, I what? I don't know how to react to that. Hey, if the
Yeah.
Ontario Ministry of Agriculture is looking for somebody else with an amazing ability to do that, look at other BME students because I'm sure there's other students who are okay with that. But damn, wait, I don't even know how to react to
And let
that.
me just say, like, if we rewind to earlier in this conversation when I told you I dealt with literal human poo and I didn't think it was that gross, like, so much worse. I guess just because of the quantity. If it had been human poo in this, like, swimming pool, I would have been just as
The
grossed
fact
out.
that you're just calmly talking about like feces with like the straightest
Yeah.
face, just being like, oh,
Yeah.
I can't. I'd cry. I'd cry
It's
if I
been
threw
a
up in
hard
my mouth.
life. Because, like, I'm what, like 22?
You're young. Oh yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
I've had 2 jobs where I've had to deal with poo, and I study biomedical engineering? That's crazy.
It is what
That's
it is.
crazy.
It is what
It
it
couldn't
is.
have happened to anyone else. I don't know a single other person that's had to do that, unless they've literally been like a farmer.
Damn. I don't even. What?
Maybe a nurse.
It's such a weird career journey. Like from like
Yeah.
waste management and
Mhm.
like obviously you had other like
My
responsibilities.
next job was in software after that, right after that.
How does that even work? What?
I don't know.
I hope I get
I really
something
don't
cool.
know.
Like I wish my story is gonna be like that. Let's just see. Hopefully I can revisit this conversation in future years.
Do you have a most embarrassing moment so far? I feel like
For
you've had
me,
time to find to accrue one.
I'm literally like a living meme, right? So
Okay.
I mess up everything I do. So I remember
Mm-hmm.
like one time. Okay, these aren't even embarrassing, but like the number of times I've sat down in like Dundas, like the lecture halls, and
Mm-hmm.
like these two people just sit on the opposite side of me, and then they'll just
Mm-hmm.
start talking, and I'll be like, oh shoot, I guess they're talking to me, and then they'll be talking
Mm-hmm.
over me, and I'll be like just
Mm-hmm.
participating in this random conversation, and I feel so bad. And I'll be like, oh, I remember one time I did it like before an exam, and I moved seats because I was like, obviously this isn't
That's so
like
funny.
gigantic vat of poo,
That's so
like
funny.
levels of funny, but
Okay, yeah. My like slightly less gross embarrassing story was, and it's very short, don't worry. I won't give too much away. My first BME 100 lecture. So the first time that I'm seeing like the freaking people that I'm gonna be spending the next 4 years with. Well, it should have been three, but it was four. Um, I choked on my own spit louder than I've ever done it in my whole life, and it would not stop. And my friend Alex, who was my only friend in BME at the time, she literally was like turning away from me because she did not want to be seen with me. That's how dramatic this coughing was. And at the time, you're like, oh, that's embarrassing. But you know when in your mind you like think something is so much worse than it actually was, and you keep replaying it, and it really wasn't that bad.
I'm
You
like, yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
know? So one time in third year, someone was like, "Oh, like those moments when you think something's really embarrassing, but everyone else forgets about it." I was like, "Yeah, this one time, I like choked in like our like first BME lecture hall, but you guys probably don't remember that." And they're like, "No, we all remember that." I was like, "Oh,
It's okay. At least there's memories like that. But at least it's a good memory. It's a good memory. That's what matters. It's a good memory. It's a good memory. If you think about it, you're gonna be immortalized in that graduating class, or who?
yeah,
Hopefully, everybody graduated from that class. But what?
definitely not. Probably not.
Let's just whoever did.
Statistically, probably not everybody did. I
Yeah,
don't know
I'm just
anybody
trying to
that
be
did."
hopeful. All the people in BMU listening to this try to graduate, but
Oh
whatever.
yeah, sure.
I think the second I like hopefully my third and fourth year have a cool embarrassing story, but like the
Mm,
second worst thing is like I remember my friends put like makeup on me, and I completely
mm.
forgot that I had like this really botched makeup on, and I was just walking around campus like alone, just like going between my classes. And
Aw.
it wasn't until I got to like one of my classes in the Victoria building and I went to the washroom, I looked at my face, I'm like, why is there like eyeliner going down here and like
Oh
lipstick up
no.
here, and nobody, you know how downtown nobody cares what you look like, nobody brought it
Yeah.
up, nobody even looked, like I swear to god they just looked at me as if I was like this is like a casual Thursday or
That's so
Friday
funny.
downtown. But it
Aw.
is
Well,
what
at
it is.
least you know you'd be accepted.
Yeah, I love walking around with half baked makeup on. At least
Mm-hmm.
if it was full on makeup I'd be fine, but
Mm-hmm.
I walked around like a clown.
Presentable.
hmm
Mm-hmm.
But that was it. But you've had a very interesting journey through
Mm-hmm.
biomed. It's for any from like first like the from the very moment that you're in it to like a super cool
Mm-hmm.
capstone at the end. It's really interesting hearing about
Mm-hmm.
it. You look like you
Yeah.
enjoyed it, and it looks like you're enjoying life now. I hope.
Mm-hmm. I
So,
think so.
what do
Yeah.
you think's next for you? I know you said at the beginning like that's such a weird question because like you can't blanket statement at school, but what is next for Ginette Hartell?
I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of things I want to do, a lot of stuff that interests me. I'm wrapping up this job at the NRC right now. That should be fun. I got a few weeks left. And then in the fall, I'm starting at Sunnybrook, which should be a really fun program. Again, another 4 months. So I'm excited to see kind of what the hospital environment's like. Obviously, I don't know how in person I'll be, depending on kind of the hospital COVID situation at that time. Um, but yeah, we'll see. It's another kind of software role, still in computer vision. So I'm excited to be kind of building on those skills. And I guess applying it to more like of a direct BME application versus the stuff I'm doing at NRC right now is photonics, biophotonics, but it's mostly just kind of general photonics applications. So yeah, I'm excited for that. Just taking life 4 months at a time, though. I don't know.
That's the first time I've ever heard somebody say that. 4 months at a
Four
time.
months at a
No,
time?
it's cool.
Yeah.
It's like I think it's good
I
that you're
like to
doing
chop up
just a
my
little
life.
bit. But no, it's really cool because you're like diversifying your experiences, right?
Yeah. from, the streets of Toronto to the back country of Greater Ottawa
Hey, nah,
and the
like it
farms.
was
Yeah,
funny.
I've seen it all.
I saw my friend. He showed me like a Google Maps thing of like Ottawa, like recently,
Hmm.
and you know how they're
Hmm.
starting to like expand out of the city, and
Hmm.
one of the signs was literally like, "This hill wasn't here last week," because they literally just put the road like going into like one of the back cities that's like leading into Ottawa. So
That's
they
funny.
know themselves that this is like the middle of nowhere, but they're starting to
Yeah.
develop.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's definitely getting bigger quickly. There's still like maybe 1 million people that live here. Um, but they're gonna do something about the infrastructure road wise before they start putting too much in out in the country because it's already pretty rough commuting downtown. Well, okay. I live in the middle of nowhere and I can still get downtown Ottawa in 40 minutes, which you cannot say about anywhere in Toronto.
Yeah, if I tried leaving my house right now and decided just to go downtown, it'd take me max like 2 hours, depending on the traffic,
Yeah.
especially because it's
Yeah.
like late evening now. But it is what it is. Did you enjoy downtown Toronto like a lot, or
Yeah, it was nice. COVID was a little rough, but otherwise I like living down there. It was fun to be close to school where I could nap between classes too. It was nice.
that's good to hear.
Hmm.
So thank you, Jeanette, for your time. I really enjoyed talking to you today. It was very
Awesome.
informative, and you're really fun to talk to. You have some very
Thank you.
wild stories, but
Thank you.
you're also really informative. I hope all the people watching can take even just like a small piece of advice away from what you've said. But once again, like you said, everybody's journey is different, and they
Hmm.
should definitely not base it on what you're experiencing, what I'm experiencing, whatever whoever's experiencing. But just carry on through. And if there's like one piece of advice you could give like at the end, is there anything that you'd want to say to whoever's listening?
Yes. Don't compare yourself to other people. Um, have fun now. This might not be a lot of fun later. You don't know. And be nice to your professors because they're all really nice people.
All the profs in BME, I hope they like it in BME, but they're there and they're always there to support you. Jeanette is proof of that because she said she had amazing fourth year profs and she loves them all and they're great. All the BME is amazing. Yeah, there. That's all we need to say. No, everything else. If there was a cut in between what I'm just saying,
And and
and
scene.
scene, yeah, and scene. But yeah, so thank you, Jeanette, for your time today. It was lovely talking
Mhm.
to you. I hope
It was
to
nice talking to you
hear.
too.
Thank you. I hope to hear a lot more cool things. I'll just make sure I have you liked so I can see the updates from you as you progress through your
Connected,
career.
not liked.
Okay, I don't know how LinkedIn works. I got it a week ago. Oh, if you're my employer and you're watching this, I got LinkedIn a long time ago and I love it. But
If you're my employer and you're watching this, I loved the stink
the
pools.
stink pools, yeah. If you want another person to hire for the stink pools, I'm up for it.
It's
I would
actually
love to do
fun,
it. It sounds
honestly. And
fun.
you know what? My title was engineering research assistant.
Oh,
So sounds sick.
might have to apply. Might have to apply. You never know.
It's pretty sick.
But yeah, so thank you, Jeanette, for your time. It was really fun talking to you. You have a lot
Mhm.
of amazing advice. You're doing a lot of
I
amazing
know.
work. Like,
I know.
thank you. And then,
I can't believe Eunice told you I was gonna be humble.
uh, you were honestly like I remember when I started like listing everything off, you were like hiding, but otherwise, no, you are very, very fun to talk to. You're very well spoken, and I can't wait to see you in a really cool position as I eventually graduate, and hopefully, maybe I can even work with you. But who knows? We never know.
You can work
Assumptions are
for
made.
me.
I can work. I wouldn't mind honestly. You're actually really fun to like listen to, and I can see that you have very like commanding and responsible like undertone. Yeah, there- I'd flex, but I'm like you'd see my sweat, but
This is the
you'd
turtleneck.
see the sweat from it being in
It's the
fall.
turtleneck for me.
It's fall.
Wow.
It's fall.
It
It's
is fun.
totally fall. But
I'm
yes,
underdressed.
it's fine. It's fine. I can't even see my neck. It looks like my head's floating. But so thank you once again, Jeanette. Thank you for your time. Thank you, BQ listeners, for your time. I'll
All
see you in our
right.
next podcast. Everybody, you can follow along on Jeanette's journey if you want to. She's a really cool person. If you ever want advice, don't message her because she's busy. You can message me instead. But yeah, thank you. And that's it for today's BQ
Awesome.
podcast.
Your
Lit.
fourth outro really sold
Yeah,
that for
fourth
me.
one. Yusuf, just keep them all in.